Hi, this is Tommy Daly of Conjuring Fate, and you're listening to the Metal Sale Podcast.
In the streets of Whitechapel to reveal another gruesome murder.
Man, that was good. I needed that, being truthful. That was Conjuring Fate's Night of the Long Knives, which was their last single, actually. If you haven't seen the video, check it out. There's some absolute bearded honeys in it, vying for Jack the Ripper's attention. Is the best way of describing it. The video actually was filmed and directed by George Clark of Yellow Fever Productions. So, big shout out to Tommy, Phil, Carl, Steve, and Niall of Conjuring Fate. It was that class track was off their last album, which was released. Jesus, it was released 5 months ago, and it was called Curse of the Fallen. I think, yeah, it was recorded in Hornland Studios, County Antrim, which is managed by the band's guitarist Phil Horner. So again, shout out to Phil there. The album was mixed and mastered by Josh Robinson at JSR Audio. And of course, Conjuring Fate signed with Germany's Pure Steel Records on March 2017. For those that are interested, and they released their debut album Valley of the Shadows in June that year. So check out all of Conjuring Fate stuff on www.conjuringfate.com and subscribe to their YouTube channel in case you haven't. So welcome to the show. Here I am on my own. Bit weird, I must say, but that is just the way things are at the moment. Tis hard out there, especially if you've fucking nothing to do. At least I've got a few distractions. Yeah, I've started watching Peaky Blinders, which is, I must say, lives up to the hype so far. Plenty of walks with the kids and just trying not to be a nuisance really around the house. Although, that said, I did make quite a fuck up last night, I suppose would be the best way of describing it. Decided to head out to one of the rooms to turn on Spotify on the laptop, and we have this reindeer's head with antlers. It wouldn't look out of place in Faulty Towers, except the thing isn't hanging up yet. I have offered repeatedly to hang it up. To give you an idea of the size of it, it's probably twice the size of a human head, and the antlers are probably 3 foot high. Got at great expense as well. So anyway, I decided to have it propped up against a cabinet while she decided to get somebody in to hang it up. Anybody bar me. Unfortunately, the antler got snagged, for a better word, on my tracksuit bottom. And as I turned around with Black Sabbath, I think, Children of the Grave, yeah, ironically enough, as that was starting to, the opening chords of that started up, I turned around and, of course, the fucking antlers and the head tilted sideways and smashed down onto the ground, sending bits of antler everywhere. Of course, the 2 kids thought it was hilarious and roared laughing, and I knew I was just fucked. So got a lovely bollocking for that. That was one funny aspect of life in seclusion at the moment in the LaFaux household. So I've got a great show lined up, and I've got some great contributions as well from a few of the lads in the scene. All will be revealed later, which I'm very grateful for. Moving swiftly onwards to some updates in relation to festivals. The first one is the Clang update. The good news is that Clang has not been cancelled but rescheduled for Saturday the 26th of September. And that's at the same venue, which is the National Stadium. I had the pleasure of being there for Testament, Exodus and Dead Angel. Those that have bought tickets, hold on to them. And those that haven't bought tickets, it's the same price and it's the same lineup bar Acid Rain, who cannot make the state. They will perform in Ireland at another time, and the Clang ticket holders will gain free admission to that gig. So hold on to the tickets. Also, Iron Mountain Festival have been in touch. Unfortunately, they had to cancel for this year. They're moving the launch to May Bank Holiday next year, and it'll still be a 3-day event with 2 stages, featuring the best of Irish talent, no doubt. So there'll be more promotional nights probably once things get back to normal. Also, all the orders and ticket sales for that event have been refunded through Eventbrite. So just keep an eye on their page. I don't think it will be the exact same lineup as they had this year, so I'd imagine further details will be revealed by Phil and his team further on towards the end of this year or maybe early next year. Also, I want to give a shout out to Cranium Titanium Metal Radio. They posted an update on the Irish Metal Poll Awards 2020, of which this podcast was nominated in for Best Radio and Podcast Show. Trev is hoping to do a live Facebook feed either Friday or Saturday of this weekend. Just keep an eye on their updates and more will be revealed. But yeah, I think we're all excited to see this happening, and it's been great actually watching a lot of the Facebook live feeds over the last few weeks. The highlight for me was Elder Druid's one last Saturday night. I hope everybody saw that. They were excellent as usual, and certainly took a lot of our minds off other things, and it was great to see a live concert again in your sitting room, I know, but still better than nothing. So well done, Elder Druid, for doing that. Another mate of mine, Dave Fitz, did one as well, and The Scratch did one as well. So yeah, maybe that is the way forward for the next few weeks. Certainly hope a lot of bands do attempt it anyway and see how they get on. So next up, I have a track by Sectile called Black Cloud. Gabriel emailed me to say that he believed this is the most appropriate choice of track, and it is also their latest single. So enjoy.
Here they come, bearing their perfectly white flags down the road with smiles glowing in the sun. Open door, they quickly step into the empty house.
time I listen to that, I just keep thinking, my God, those vocals, absolutely brilliant performance. I want to give a shout out to the rest of the lads, Mark, Cormac, Zach and Marcelo as well, Insectile. And thanks Gabriel for sending on the track to me. So just a few facts about Sectile for those that mightn't have come across them or hearing them for the first time. They formed in November 2016 in Dublin, and then they released their self-titled EP on November 2017, the following year. So 2018 then saw the band release the single The Hunt, which kind of gave us an indication of what to expect of their new release, which was the excellent Falls Apart, and that was released on the 25th of February of this year. Mixed and mastered by the legend that is Aidan Cunningham, and it was released under, I think, a Dublin record label, the Silver Moon Records. I kind of had a quick check up on them. I haven't come across much by them. I know it was established in October 2019, and there's also the Silver Moon Records over in Canada. So maybe the band could fill us in on more details. They have a really cool website as well, sectileofficial.com. And of course, they're on Bandcamp, YouTube, and the usual social media sites, Instagram, etc. God knows what the next few months hold for them. Of course, it couldn't have come at a worse time when they're releasing an album. We would love to see them play live down this side of the country, down Cork. So we just have to wait and see how things go. Okay, I want to go on to the next section of the show, which is the main topic. And it's a topic that I love, and it is probably one of the most crucial parts of the metal scene, apart from the music obviously, is the merchandising side of things, and more to the point, t-shirts. I remember being a kid, probably 15, 16, and just being broke and not having the money to afford a t-shirt. And it just simply came down to getting a blank white t-shirt, finding paint, and I think as far as I can remember it was emulsifier and some model airplane paint as well. It was a combination of both anyway. And I got my Anthrax album, which was Among the Living, and I basically designed my own Anthrax t-shirt, complete with the front of it, which was an actual Indian's face, complete with a beautiful coloured headpiece. And I contacted Timmy, who would have been and still is my best mate, and I asked him, did he remember me doing that? And he said, yeah, he remembered it very well. Of course, the downside of it is, you know, I wore it 4 or 5 times, and until my mother found it hidden in the wardrobe and decided to wash it for me and just fucking destroyed it. The next real t-shirt I got then was an Iron Maiden one, which was Stranger in a Strange Land. And of course back then, which was probably 86, 87, you couldn't really get all the big bands. You kind of had to go up to the city, which was Cork, go into Queen's Castle or Golden Discs, and they would have, you know, the latest AC/DC, Motorhead t-shirts, but you wouldn't kind of get the likes of Metallica, not yet, because it was still early days, 86, 87, as I said. But I do remember asking for a print-on t-shirt, and those that don't know what a print-on t-shirt is basically a blank t-shirt, and you kind of flick through probably an A3 sized folders until you find the image that you want, and then it's ironed onto the t-shirt. So typically you would get maybe 10 or 15 wears out of it, and it starts cracking and fading, but you'd still wear it, because back then nobody really wore wearing heavy metal t-shirts, bar maybe 3 or 4 of the local lads. And where we lived, which is Youghal, which was a beach town, you'd always be out there during the summertime watching to see if any people that are, holidaying would have they bring their kids holidaying with them, and inevitably you'd find some dude walking along with a t-shirt of a heavy metal band. I do remember another time, myself and Timmy were in Perks Fun Fair, and there was this younger guy wearing a Venom t-shirt, which was highly unusual. And of course, the two of us went up to him and then proceeded to ask a million questions about Venom to see if he actually really was following the band, or maybe it was a hand down from his brother. But there were the times back then, it was really just, you were kind of part of a small elite group, which was the metal community, probably around 8 of us into metal. And, we just had just 2 or 3 t-shirts each until we kind of could afford proper ones, the ones that actually had the back print on them. And all this just made me kind of think of the scene that we have at the moment, and, how cheap t-shirts are now, and that, you could really afford to buy them. When I look then at, we'll say, the Testament, Exodus, and Dead Angel gig, it was just weird seeing all the t-shirts up there for 30 euros onwards. And, I just started thinking, Jesus, I'm not going to buy those t-shirts. I don't feel any kind of bonding with those bands anymore. They were great when I was growing up. I was really into them, had all their albums, but now it's nothing compared to the bond I'd have with an Irish band, that will be playing 3 feet in front of me. That when they finish, they come down and go, well, man, what did you think of the gig? And I'll go, that was fucking amazing. And they'll probably go, thanks for wearing my fucking t-shirt, That's the underground scene in Ireland. That is the scene that we're all involved in now at the moment. And that's the scene I love. It's just too big a disconnect when a band comes in and plays a venue over 2,000 people. You're not going to be meeting that band afterwards for beers or share stories, Will they even remember you? Probably not. And that's what I like about the underground scene in Ireland and the bands that tour there. They'll all remember you. Like, I kind of looked into it, and in 1968 the first rock t-shirts were produced, and they were made by the concert promoter Bill Graham. He kind of worked with Jefferson Airplane, the Grateful Dead, Led Zeppelin. We've come a long way in relation to heavy metal music, but still the big draw, the big money spinner for a lot of bands nowadays is the t-shirt, And like in 1978, Arturo Vega designed the Ramones logo. And that t-shirt would be a prime example of one that's just iconic and is always there. It's one of the most recognizable band logos and in the world, that image of the eagle on the American flag. And then, of course, as I mentioned, in 1979, Iron Maiden's logo appeared on their debut EP. And that's just another classic of its time. The t-shirt is always going to be the biggest seller for an artist, these days anyway. And the genre of music that we love, it tends to sell more. And also, it's a big part of how acts make money, as revenue from physical sales are declining. Kind of just made me wonder about, we'd say, big touring bands when they come in to the UK and Ireland, because there is a lot of hidden costs that we'd say the consumer doesn't see. For example, in the UK, I think VAT swallows up 20% of the sale price. And then you go to the venue and acts could be charged a flat fee or a percentage of the turnover for that night for simply having a merchandising stand at the venue. And like, stuff like that needs to be said. Like, the people who earn the most out of the products, apart from the tax man, are these concession companies. Like, kind of, we'd say maybe an artist could probably make around £4.80 for a t-shirt sold for 20 quid in these places. And we'll say for venues that have a capacity of around 10,000 and upwards, they can take anything from 20 to 30% of the gross, even as much as 40% in some cases. For acts on the road, with the venue cut and the taxes, when they're accounted for, they might have to work with like kind of 55% of the retail price. So for a t-shirt that costs £5 to make and is sold for 20, the margin after deductions would be £6. The band's manager would probably take 20% of that. So that's really more in the region of £4.80. Kind of for the venues, it's for around 1,000 capacity level in England. Like, acts could be charged a fee of £60 to £80 for a table at the back of a venue, regardless of how much merchandising they sell. Grassroots venues would have a capacity of 300, normally charge nothing for merchandise tables. So this can allow smaller acts to take home more of the £20, you know. So, you know, there's all that to be considered over in England. And I mean, our bands tour England, you know, they hit Bloodstock. It's just something to consider. So I just started thinking then about Absurd Merchandise. They're based up, I think it is Sligo, and Chris and Baylor is involved with Alex. And I decided to contact Alex because, I mean, all my favourite clothing is, the majority of it is Absurd Merchandise, because they do Baylor, Worn Out, God Alone, Grey Stag, you know. So here's a clip of Alex talking about his company, and I hope you enjoy it.
So Absurd Merch started a couple of years ago when Chris from Baylor and myself were chatting. We just released Baylor's third EP through my record label, Destroy Records, which I've been running for the last, 10 years or so, releasing kind of hardcore punk and other kind of heavier sounding bands, mainly Irish bands, bands like Bacchus and Harvester from Galway, and Putrefaction and Rat's Blood from Dublin, Ocus from Drogheda, loads of others as well, and loads of bands from all over the place, like France, Sweden, Poland, Russia, the US, the UK, and so anyway, Baylor were due to head off on tour, so we decided that they needed shirts and merch for their tour, and we printed them up, and with the idea being that once the lads sold the merch on tour and they came back, that they'd pay the bill. So we did that, and it worked out grand. So then we got chatting and said, like, maybe we could do a little project along the same lines. And that's where the idea for Absurd Merch came from. So what we did was we teamed up with Danny and Edel from Pulse and Art for Blind Records. They do screen printing of t-shirts, and so then I also share a kind of studio space / kind of workshop or office space where we both run the record labels out of, and so then we started printing. We kind of got in touch with bands and let them know what we were doing. So we started printing up merch for the likes of Worn Out and God Alone, Corrosa, Black Shuck, Red Sun Alert, Soothsayer, Words That Burn, Great Stag. I'm probably repeating myself at the moment, and also some festivals like Monolith Fest that happened last year in Cork, and Ritual of the Evil Eye, and also Urban Assault Festival, which recently happened down in Cork, and we did it last year, and this year we've been printing shirts for all these bands, and we decided to kind of like branch out a bit and just say we print the shirts, and so the bands might be getting like 50 shirts or something like that, and then we said that we'd print out off another extra 5 or so, and then stock them in my record label store, which is at distrotable.com, like as in like a merch table, like a distro table. So get in records and distribute them or distro them. And so then I distro them on my online distrotable.com. Hence the name of the website. So if you go to absurdmerch.com, you'll see all the absurd merch merch that we stock for other bands. So the idea was we take an extra 5 shirts or so, 5, 10, depending on the bands and what we think we might sell, and we put them up into the shop. And as the shirts sell, then we give the bands the royalties. So whether they then like want to put those royalties towards like paying for more merch, or whether they want to just take the money for themselves to pay off other bills. So in essence, it's like a fulfillment service, because like I go to the post office nearly daily with selling records and distributing records for lots of other bands. For bands to send merch themselves, they have to like deal with getting packaging supplies, which most of them won't buy in bulk, like unlike myself, and then like not knowing exactly how to send something. So like if you, depending how you pack a t-shirt, you'll either get charged the normal amount or you could get charged a couple of euro extra. So it all adds up in costs for bands. A lot of bands also have to get the motivation to go out, get the packaging supplies, pack the t-shirts, then go to the post office, and not everyone's used to doing it. So sometimes I know other bands can take a couple of weeks to even send out orders. So we wanted to offer this service through the record label and through the web store, and that's why we've kind of absurd merch. So it's only kind of like, it's a project that we're kind of working on, and hopefully we can build it. And the idea would be that we could build it so that people can go to like a kind of one-stop shop for Irish bands. And currently we've been working with Baylor, Worn Out, God Alone, Croza, Grey Stag, and Words That Burn, with the idea to kind of expand this kind of one-stop shop, just so people can come to absurdmerch.com. They can add like a Baylor shirt, a Worn Out shirt, a Croza shirt, and they can just check out, and they don't have to be expecting like 3 different packages and paying 3 times the postage, that they can just pay for everything at once. So it's like a web store, so you can get like all your favorite Irish metal band t-shirts all at the same place. I would love to do is to like expand this and help lots of other bands out in the same way, but these things take time, and it's a lot of experimenting, because it's hard to know what will sell, and you don't want to be stuck with a load of t-shirts at the end of the day. Another thing we've been doing as well is last year or something, I think it was, we actually got an absurd t-shirt design made up by Ciaran Nolan of Hollow, Truth and Flashpoint. He plays in those bands, and he also does some amazing artwork under his Spearhead Media banner, where he does a lot of logos for bands and album covers and layouts. If we printed up some absurd merch t-shirts, it would be like that. All the money that we get back from that would go back into kind of helping to expand the absurd merch kind of support that we could offer bands, so we could take bigger stocks, send out more merch to bands on like credit, so that if a band wanted to go on tour, that we could supply them with like a bunch of shirts, and they could go off on tour, sell the shirts, come back, and then pay off the bill. Of course, this is all easier said than done, and have had a few setbacks over the years. I was very busy last year myself, so I couldn't actually get stuff kickstarted into full swing, like. And also now this year we've the coronavirus, which is holding things up. I know Worn Out, we're supposed to be doing a tour in April, and they've had to cancel all their plans. So we were gearing up to print up a bunch of merch for the lads, but that's all been put on hold. So like, as we all know, at the moment everything's a bit up in the air, but the idea would be in the future to kind of work towards building kind of an absurd merch kind of web store that we can have stock loads of bands t-shirts, so that it would be a place to go for Irish metal, hardcore, punk music. Like as I said, I have a lot of connections with the kind of punk music, and I haven't really brought that into absurd merch. So in the next year, I'd say I'll start trying to do that a bit more as well. And the idea would be that it would be a support for the Irish metal community and the punk scene, and just use it as a resource to help out in some way, whether it be like a organised way of getting fans their metal t-shirts so that they can currently wear them in their sitting rooms instead of at gigs. But look, there'll be, hopefully in a couple of months' time, this will all have blown over and we can be all at gigs again. For now, it's just sit back and kind of plan ahead and see how we can help out people. That's my general ethos. It's just kind of, help bands. We're all in, like, I don't think there's anyone really making any money out of this. We all do it for the love of it. In terms of punk, hardcore, metal, whatever your cup of tea is. But like, the idea is just to help everyone out and use absurd merch as a vehicle to help the metal community and help the punk scene, and just get everybody their favorite bands t-shirts. And hopefully one day I can actually have a separate absurd merch website. But look, it's still kind of early days in terms of size and scale. But so if anybody has any questions, just or wants to know more about us, just kind of, you can look up absurdmerch.com. That will bring you to the web store, and you can order your favorite t-shirt, or there should be a place to contact myself or anyone else. So thanks.
So thanks a million to Alex Fitzgerald for giving us some great insights into the running of absurd merchandising, and also for sharing some of his plans for 2020 and onwards. Much appreciated, and I wish him nothing but success. One of the bands that Alex mentioned, of course, was Corrosa, and Corrosa brought out a design probably 2 years ago now, nearly, yeah. It was a two-headed raven on a skull, and I absolutely loved it. I think it's a classic Irish metal design, and the guy who did it is Ciaran, who is also in Corrosa, and he runs his own, design company, really, Obsidian Imagery. So I got Ciaran to come on the show and explain the thought process behind the two-headed raven and skull. So,
hi Richie, this is Ciaran here from Obsidian Imagery. I just want to say thanks a million for having me on the Metal Sale podcast. You've asked me to come on just to discuss the artistic process behind the design that I did for Corrosa. It was the two-headed raven and skull, which eventually ended up on a t-shirt. My design process is actually it's always different, but this was the very first one I did. And of course, being in the band, it came with its own kind of, I suppose, differences as opposed to doing this for someone as a commission. This design was actually around from the time of our demo, which would have been in 2017, mid-2017. For some reason, we just didn't go with the design. I presented it as a sketch. So what the lads would have seen at the time would have been just a rough idea of this two-headed raven on a skull. Trying to think about what the meaning was behind it because it's so long ago, 2 years ago. I think what I did was I was just using a lot of different imagery that I was coming across, and I was looking into kind of just ravens at the time. Decided to create this amalgamation. I think at the time what I was trying to do was a kind of dualistic approach in imagery. So it would have symbolized duality. They were then, because this thing was alive, being perched on a skull, the skull would have been the memento mori, the symbol of death, a reminder that we're all going to die. Now, I know that skulls are a very cliched thing in heavy metal, And again, this wasn't initially really intended for use with Carosa. It was just a design that I had that I just kind of showed to the lads. They were interested in it, but again, we just didn't go with the design at the time. So 2 years passed by, and then for the release of Chalice Burner, there came a time when we were discussing merchandise. The topic of t-shirts came up. So we were discussing what we could put on a t-shirt, and the lads straight away just said, what about the Raven design that you did? So at that time, I got to work on it again. I dug it out. I still had it lying around, the initial sketch. And then what I did was I redrew it from its kind of rough sketch and did it in a more, I suppose, it would have been a much more heavily contrasted design with a lot of dot work. So you'll actually see it in the finished design. The skull has kind of dotted shading on it. That was the way it was for the entire design. The Ravens had it as well. I didn't like the way it looked. The lads liked it, but I went back. So I traced the outline of it again to get it the exact same size, and then redrew the entire thing again, doing just line work. The line work looked good. But then I decided to do it a third time. So I did a third copy of it again, but this time did it in pencil and watercolor. So I was kind of looking at the three of them, trying to decide. And because they were all the same size, what I was able to do was scan them all in and just open them with Photoshop and layer them on top of each other. So that way it was, the shading was coming through the dot work and the line work. And using just kind of eraser tools and stuff in Photoshop, I was able to take out the different elements that I didn't like. So it kind of eventually ended up with the watercolor shading on the actual crows themselves, which you can kind of see the shading coming through in the feathers, and it was mainly line work. So then everything else, as in the skull, would have just been dot work. So it's actually three separate drawings just put on top of each other. Then of course in Photoshop, I was able to start playing around with colors, and we settled on 2 different colors. And of course we were going to just offer a different option instead of the standard black for the obvious choice for metalheads. So we wanted to do completely opposite, as a white design. So I just again started playing around. What I wanted was this kind of the idea of either a moon or a sun behind it, but just a circle basically, and fill that with color. So for the white design, I looked at a load of different colors. We tried green, orange. Like I ran this stuff by the lads a lot, and we all kind of settled on the ones that popped out for us. I think the one I initially did was the black and the purple, and that of course is just a standard doomy kind of colors. It came from Black Sabbath's album covers, and then I think Electric Wizard started using it. So I just kind of played off that standard kind of doomy kind of colors. And then for the white one, I think I played around with a few different ones. We had a green circle there, and while it looked okay, it just didn't look right. The red one, a lot of people said it looked kind of like the Japanese rising sun, and that was kind of interesting as well. So we went with those 2 colors basically, and then we stuck them on a t-shirt. They came back looking pretty good, so we ran with them. But again, that was a very different procedure than what I'd normally do for the likes of a commission for a band or anything like that. Whereas they'd come at me with ideas, and I'd be kind of following up with them as to what they want, and walking them through the process of what works and what doesn't work. Whereas with this was something that I kind of preconceived, and then it just kind of stayed parked for 2 years, and then revisited it, and just kind of with a fresh set of eyes just went to work and creating something that just, I don't know, I suppose stood out. Not too heavy on detail, just a nice simple design to put on a t-shirt. So yeah, I hope that shed some light on what I do and how I do it. And thanks a million for having me on.
Thank you, Ciaran, for that. It's one of my favourite t-shirts by an Irish metal artist by a long, long mile. I remember wearing that to a few things, and people just stopping me and asking me about it. One particular favourite, obviously, was the time I interviewed Jan Benai down in Clonakilty. the two lads out of Jam and I thought it was class, and the manager as well. And great icebreaker as well. You know, we started talking about that, complete strangers, and just goes to show the power that an image on a t-shirt, as a way of connecting with an artist and a fan, they become kind of a visual shorthand, for a better word, and send out a message that the act whose name you have on your chest is definitely worth checking out. Kind of a t-shirt spotted in the real world can, through a great design, stand out and put musicians in the eye line of people who might otherwise be unaware of them. It's the best way of summing it up, isn't it? Another great band associated with t-shirts, and there's quite a few, and I was delighted he actually contributed to this, was Sean O'Sullivan out of 10 Ton Slug. Here's what Sean had to say about another classic Slug release, and it is the beautiful day green yellow Slug 1950s horror movie. It came from the peat to eat human meat. I actually have this not only on t-shirt, but I have a signed poster by the lads as well, and definitely a prized possession. So without any further ado, I'll let Sean explain the whole process behind it.
Hey, Sean here from 10 Ton Slug. Richie asked me to chat a little bit about the thought process that went into the design and the making of the Beast from the Bog 10 Ton Slug shirt from 2 years ago now. So this was different from all our other designs in a number of ways. Firstly, it was our first in colour, and secondly, it was our first time working with somebody outside of the band. We'd kept everything in the band before then. The main reason for this was we had a tour, March of the Mollusk tour, 8-day tour in the March of 2018, and just before this tour we found out that we would be supporting Black Label Society in Dublin, in the Tivoli Theatre, and for 2 dates in Belfast too. So we wanted to do a special piece of merch for this, but given the restrictions with our time and everything, because we're going on tour and because Owen usually did our shirt designs, the usual process wasn't something that was available to us at that time. So we said we'd go with somebody else and we could keep the tour just as focusing on the tour basically. So after a lot of kind of looking around, we decided to go with Andy Pilkington, who is somebody we'd met through the Bloodstock thing. We'd met at Bloodstock, I think the year or 2 years before, and we'd heard a lot about his work. So we got in touch. He was well up for it. He loves B-movie posters, and I don't know if it was him or us who suggested the idea of a B-movie poster originally. We had a good look online, and we found loads of slime kind of based stuff thrown around, loads of ideas, like slime boobs was in there and a whole lot of other stuff as well. But in the end, we decided to go with something that kind of was more of a throwback to the, let's say, the origin story of the slug coming out of a bog, that kind of relates a little bit more to us and is a bit of crack as well. So we decided to call it Beast from the Bog, and we went through a couple of different drafts of it. We knew the colour scheme should be green, or have a lot of green in it, and we, after a lot of back and forth, we decided that putting our names on it would be cool in this case, because it would make it more of like a movie poster showing exclusively in these places at these times. So that's what we did. We threw in Samuel L. Jackson at the bottom as well for a laugh, because he's pretty much in everything. And it came together basically as we were driving through Scotland and England, very hungover most days. So yeah, it was something that, it was a group effort. As we were dying, we came up with a phrase, it came from the peat to eat human meat, which got a good laugh from everyone, so we said we'll keep that as well. Checking the newest one, the newest version, and making a few tweaks. And by the time the tour was over, the design was done. It was brilliant, really easy to work with Andy, and really, really good result at the end. We were absolutely delighted with it. We only did 100 of these shirts, and they were only available at the shows, and they sold out. So it was really good. We've worked with Andy since. We've done the Slugzilla design with him, and this is something that we've done to kind of keep in stock, not just for one particular show or anything like that. Ultimately, the shirt is just it's a bit of crack, and it's good to be able to work with somebody new, do something different, something in colour, and something specific for a gig, which was all firsts for us at that point, really. And that's it. Cheers.
Thanks a million to Sean for that contribution. Wow, there's plenty of stuff there that I bet people didn't know. And it was so cool to hear the way the whole thing came together. I love the thing about Samuel L. Jackson as well. Who would have thought that? I think nearly all of 10 Ton Slug T-shirts at this stage should be collector's items. I don't know how many times I've been at festivals and gigs and people have come up to me going, wow, I love your T-shirt. Or on the other side, I've been at a gig and I've seen a 10 Ton Slug patch or a T-shirt as well, and I've gone up to the dude going, hey man, really love your T-shirt. They're just that type of band. They are one of the most important metal bands in Ireland at the moment. It's just a great time to be a 10 Ton Slug fan. And long may they prosper and continue. So thanks a million to all the lads that agreed to come on the show tonight. Part 2 of my T-shirt special will continue next week. And I am absolutely delighted to leave you all tonight with an exclusive, and it is the new track from Grief Eater. Grief Eater are releasing their self-titled debut on March the 31st, and this is the opening track. A little bit more information on it is it was recorded and mixed up at Lost Light Recordings. So shout out to Shawnee Cads and Jonathan for sending on the track. And the name of the track is Imha in Iog, I think. That's if my Irish is half decent anyway. So thanks everybody for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show. It was definitely a strange one, just me on my own. But yeah, it is what it is, as they say. Check out all the social media on the Metal Cell, and don't forget to check out the new website, www.themetalcell.com. And stay safe out there, people, and stay positive. I believe you with the beautiful, subtle sounds of Grief Eater.